Hi. I'm going to wait for a minute or so. Welcome, welcome. 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 I think that in the interest of time and in the interest of honoring the time, I am going to start. I'd like to start by thanking all those who work with me, known and unknown to me, for I didn't know that today I'll be here. I had no idea that I'd be still alive. I am now inviting all of us to bow our heads in a moment of silence, because all of us have lost loved ones. We've lost parents, we've lost grandparents, we've lost our children, born and unborn. We've lost our lovers, we've lost our siblings. There's a lot of loss, surrounded by loss. And today, we are remembering the day that Noby, my late husband, passed away. And I would like for us to remember all those who've left us. Just yesterday, it was South Africa's Human Rights Day. We remembered those were massacred. There have been countless massacres in this country, some acknowledged and some unacknowledged. There are senseless deaths in this country, such as children still dying from malnutrition, senseless killings in this country. There are wars that are raging in the world. I am requesting all of us who are here right now to bow our heads for a moment, please. And let us connect with the spirit of all those who have left us. Those known and unknown to us, wherever they may be, all over the world. Because we are one. Their suffering is our suffering. All those who have lost loved ones, all those who are transitioning right now, we are one. How can I forget the tragic loss through COVID? Let us remember all those who left us during COVID. I have countless friends who passed away, and many have both parents, husbands, wives, children. Let us remember them today, on this 22nd of March, which is the day when the love of my life was brutally killed. Thank you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I'm honoring Noby Ngombane, Spirit to his friends this afternoon. He used to call himself Mkhatebe. Khatebe, Bungane, Mtimkhulu, Mafuza Fule, Zombini, Mashwabata. And he used to go on, and I'm going to say this in Xhosa, and say, Umkhulu Thixo, kodwa awungangabhungane. He was a proud Hlubi young man. Loosely translated, God. God, you are enormous. You are an entity that is beyond words. At the same time, the Bunganes are the greatest. You can never be greater than Bungane. That was Noby, my love, my confidant, my friend, my comrade, my husband. And he used to say, on a very good day, he used to say, okay, that day he would be wearing, he loved dressing up. He would be really, looking smart and possibly going out to meet some lady. Shh, that's our secret. And he would say, Dimhlemna, Fuzuhate, Tatam. Meaning, I'm handsome, I'm as handsome as my father. That was Noby. Your friend, the friend of the people of this country. That was Noby, your comrade. That was Noby, your colleague. That was Noby, a son who is loving parents, who's adoring parents. That was Noby, an astute politician, an impeccable administrator, a team player, a peacemaker, a unifier. That was Noby. Oh, Khatem. Thank you for being here with us, all of us, his brothers and sisters, and all of you who knew him, and to all of you who didn't know him. Today is his day. We're remembering him. Thank you. I'm going to ask for this to be a little bit interactive, and I am not sure how it works because I'm a technophobe, so I don't really play around with gadgets in this way. And I would like for you to ask the question: who of you has ever gone through a phase in their lives that has led them to lose hope and to feel that this is the end, and to feel that there's no way out? Who? If you can just press your likes. I don't know how this works. Who has been in despair and felt like this would never end? I have been. Who of you can believe that I have contemplated taking my life so many times? Not just my life, the lives of my 2 children. That is how destitute I have been. I've been held strong. I don't know. Now, let us come to story time. It was March 2005, and I had been a stay-at-home mother and wife for 3 months. We lived in a small, cozy, leafy suburb in Bloemfontein called Hillsborough. It was me, my lovely husband Noby, our 2 young children, Zandile, who was 5, and Kanya, who was 7, and my cousin, Sipumle. Of course, we had our helper. I was living the life of my dreams. We were in a honeymoon phase. Noby was a traditional man, traditional Hlubi guy, who wanted his wife to literally take care of the home. And I was doing that. He was happy. We were happy. We were planning to save to go to Germany to the World Cup. And he often asked me if he would ask, do you think Kanya would be old enough to understand soccer next year? And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. All I know, me and Zandile will be just having fun. You can go watch your soccer. We were happy. Then we came home for lunches. Oh my God. It was the best time of our lives. And then tragedy struck. He was taken away. The enemies of the people took him away. And I was lost. My children were lost. Eventually, after persecution, arrest, fighting for my life, children's lives, sent into a deep depression. During this fight for our lives, oh, Noby was broke, guys. He just was a civil servant who was taking care of us, of me, my children, his family, and my family. He didn't have money. He didn't plan for his death. So when I was persecuted together with my siblings, and we fought, eventually losing, I eventually lost everything. My children grew up without the photographs that their father had taken with them because they were lost. They were lost because I had left them in a storage facility in Cape Town that I couldn't pay for it, and we eventually lost everything, all the memories, and Noby loved photos. I went into a deep depression, lost everything, and eventually moved to a garage in Teflachte in Bloemfontein. By that time, I was a zombie of sorts. I couldn't pray, I couldn't do anything. I'd given up. I even planned my suicide, but it was not going to be suicide, it was going to be a femicide. I'd given up. After in that surrender, there was a tunnel of light that surfaced. I got a job. I was still very depressed. And the job that I got was a humble job. Years later, in 2017, I came across the journey. Zandile took her life in 2018. And that was the lowest. That was the lowest. She couldn't take it. I didn't understand that Kanya was also going through a lot at the time. And as I wept with myself, gradually and slowly, starting learning several practices, leaning on prayer as well. I eventually became who I am here today, who's able to face you again, who's able to face the world again. I trained to become coach, and exactly 12 months ago I left my job to start this coaching business. I've reclaimed my life, and I'm standing in my power now, and I'm standing in my light now. I offer a coaching program that is tailored to individuals. I am part of a group of women who are coaching young women. I do that on a voluntary basis. I'm a keynote speaker, and I've written a book. This is a book of triumph. One of my friends who've read the book describes it as a love letter to myself. Indeed, it is. So, let me read some paragraphs of this love letter to myself. I've taken a couple of sections from several chapters, and I'm focusing on Noby purposefully because this is about him and not about me. And of course, must buy the book. So I've taken some aspects from chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. Welcome to my book. Who does she think she is? Who does she think she is, this short woman? Who does she think she is? Ngombane. I can imagine them, the killers. I can imagine them, when they're deciding that I was going to be the scapegoat. Let's show her. Who does she think she is? So I'm going to read now. Our love story with Noby Ngombane, referred to by friends and foe as Noby throughout his life, is a tapestry woven with trials and triumphs, joys and tribulations, and moments that challenged our bond. Through it all, our love proved to be enduring, On the 25th of January 1989, during the Student Open Day, first-year students like me were addressed by various speakers. I distinctly remember one of them, the SRC president, although I didn't quite catch his name. He left a lasting impression, not because of his eloquence, but due to his captivating presence. His attire, a white shirt, rolled up sleeves, khaki six-pocket pants, and faded Converse shoes seemed unassuming. Yet, his striking features were what drew me in. He was tall, lean, and had an intense handsomeness about him. Internally, I felt a connection, as if I had a glimpse of my future husband. I could not wait to share this revelation to my boyfriend, who found it amusing and even unbelievable that an SRC president would take an interest in a first-year student and eventually becoming her husband. Nevertheless, I was unwavering in my belief. Weeks later, on Valentine's Day, I ventured into town to get a gift for my boyfriend. Hoping for a romantic rendezvous, I delivered the gift to his campus. However, he was engrossed in preparing for a test the following day, leaving me disappointed. I joined my newfound friends. In one of their rooms, a group of friends, including that intriguing guy from the open day, joined us. He introduced himself as Nova, a name that initially made me laugh hard due to its uniqueness. As he repeated it in his husky voice, I realized that the name was real and immediately stopped laughing. While I was still mesmerized by his striking appearance, our initial meeting seemed ordinary, and I had forgotten my earlier premonition of a future husband. As the days passed, he pursued me, although at that point I did not think much of it. However, he had a way of making me feel special, and our shared circle of friends allowed us to meet frequently. Towards the end of the following week, I had an intense feeling that I needed to go home, despite the classes starting soon. With only 75 rands for the bus fare and nothing else, I confided in him, who kindly gave me an extra 5 rands, suggesting I buy bananas to sustain me during the 12-hour bus journey home. Upon arriving at home early on Friday morning, I discovered that my brother had been in an accident and was still being attended to. It became clear why I had to go home that weekend. I returned to university the following Monday, and my first stop, guess what was my first stop was? It was the Basil February residence. For some reason I could not explain. It was to show my appreciation to Noby, who had called to check on me daily while I was at home. I just didn't question my actions. And that morning ended with the belief that he was my boyfriend. My previous boyfriend soon learned of this development and suffered heartbreak. Although my family was not accustomed to public displays of affection, I had absorbed enough from reading romance novels and desired to hold hands, kiss, and be openly affectionate. I was head over heels in love with Noby, to the point of obsession. Moreover, we were friends, and our connection was intense. He also had a wonderful group of friends. I declared him my boyfriend, much to his blushing embarrassment. I wanted to be close to him, but our romance was not as passionate as I had hoped. It became evident that his other relationships at UWC were always discreet, beneath the radar, and that he had a steady girlfriend elsewhere. While this did not bother me, I preferred a more open relationship. We had a complex and confusing connection. We talked and shared, and he could engage me in deep conversations. I never needed to explain myself to him. When he mentioned that his girlfriend was coming to visit, I knew I would not contain myself. So I informed my mother and went home. When I came back, I decided to end our relationship because it was becoming too painful for me. My previous boyfriend took delight in my heartbreak. What did I do? I immersed myself in relationships with other handsome young men, although I continued to yearn for Noby. Eventually, we settled for being friends with benefits. Our relationship puzzled a few, but we understood it. It was multifaceted and came with its sets of challenges for both of us. I wanted him to commit to me, but I could never bring myself to ask him because he was already committed elsewhere. Although I often teased him about becoming my husband, I had an inexplicable confidence in this outcome. He left UWC at the end of 1991, and we kept in touch through his occasional calls in 1992. And then I'm going to jump, because we must buy the book and find out what happens, and go to scene number, I don't know. The most challenging period in our lives was shortly after we entered a civil union in Cape Town at the Home Affairs Office on October 27, 1995. Noby's brother, Papana, and my childhood friend, Nondwe, stood as our witnesses, and afterwards we celebrated with a simple coffee. Noby went to work, the others back to their campus, and I headed out for a day of leisure. It was his payday. At that point, we already spent 6 months living together. Noby, who had grown accustomed to a routine of a takeout and an occasional home-cooked meal, suddenly began demanding home-cooked dinners, a meticulously clean house, and clean clothes hand-washed and ironed by me. I, on the other hand, was not the domestic type. And this shift created conflict. We also argued about many things during that period as we struggled to find common ground. At one point, I became convinced that our relationship was simply not working and contemplated returning home. But Noby reminded me of our commitment to make it work, and in support of this, he shared that the soccer team called Orlando Pirates had a no opt-out clause for its players. He humorously referred to our union as a Pirates Union and claimed that once committed, there was no turning back. Well, I never found out if that was indeed true for the Pirates players, but I soldiered on. We found ourselves engaged in disputes even on our way to the movies, where I would want to turn back and he would insist we keep up with our agreement. But once immersed in the movie, we would forget about our quarrels. Noby had a unique wisdom that encouraged us to stay the course, reminding me that I had nowhere else to go. And we needed to navigate these challenges together. I move on to the next chapter. And this chapter is titled Shadows of Mortality, Unearthing Unspoken Fears. Our journey was a blend of love, introspection, and a perpetual acknowledgement of life's fragility. Noby and I spoke about death, dying, and how we wanted the process to unfold when the inevitable happened. For a long time, we both wished for cremation. He also hoped he would go first because he thought I was stronger. However, he did not want me to have intimate relationships after he passed away. We would argue about this until we reached a compromise. I would not remarry because he promised never to remarry if I predeceased him. These conversations were a mixture of seriousness and jest, as we were young and in good health. Under normal circumstances, we should not have been discussing these things. But our lives were not exactly normal. Starting in the middle of 2004, Noby became almost obsessive about his death. We would revisit funeral preparations and program discussions regularly. I would joke about keeping his ashes next to our bed to sprinkle into my morning coffee because he was a part of me. He would ask me to honor his wishes, looking at me with his big puppy eyes. Of course, I would agree dismissively, frustrating him in the process. In the process of writing my story, that is this book, I shared with one of my relatives and brother, Loiso, about the chapter about Noby's wishes. And Loiso had this to say, and I quote, "I find it surreal that in the short time I spent as your family guest in Bloem, Radebe touched on so many things regarding his past, wishes, and death. That he was likely to be killed, the likely killers, and even the speaking arrangements in his funeral service, including his wish that his wife should speak. Of the few people I shared this with, I could tell they do not believe me and only hear desperate rumblings of someone going to the level of the absurd in trying to protect a loved one, even though they as well tend to agree with me on the obvious injustice regarding his death and the persecution of his family. On January, I close quote, sorry. I must get used to these things. That was Loiso, my brother. On January 8, 2005, we traveled to Mthatha, Eastern Cape, for the ANC anniversary commemoration, although I did not attend the actual event. We had become inseparable, sharing laughter and deep connections. Often, we did not need words then. Our presence was enough. He was feeling extremely sad and vulnerable. He had been on antidepressants and had developed high blood pressure. As he talked about his imminent death during a moment of relaxation to one of his comrades that we were with, for the first time, I could feel his fear. He was gently requesting support for himself and his family, that is our family, but I could tell it was not fully registering with his comrade. When we returned from Mthatha, Noby arranged for another meeting with Casper, who was our broker. Casper had the paperwork ready. After the pleasantries, he went through the package and explained it to us. We watched as he pointed to graphs and tables on an LCD screen. At one point, Casper looked at me and said, "Nokwanda, your standard of living will not deteriorate if Noby dies." Noby's rage flared. And he said, "Casper, do you want my wife? Do you want me to die?" He angrily pulled me out of that office. It was late January 2005. He was my husband, and I understood his dramatic outbursts. We never brought up that incident again. And I move now to the next chapter, entitled, When Darkness Descended, Going Through the Abyss, and Death Wishes Granted. It starts, during the time of tragedy, it was the strength of remembrance and honoring that became a guiding light that helped navigate the darkness of loss and uncertainty. March 22, 2005 was an ordinary Tuesday. I woke up slowly, willing myself to awaken and get out of bed the same way I did each morning. Noby was dealing with a hangover and preferred to stay in bed. Our son Kanya was staying with his grandparents. He cherished those visits, relishing time with friends and pampering he received. Zandile, our daughter, stayed with us. My cousins Pumle, who had come to stay with us in search of a job during Noby's birthday week, had already found employment. I headed to Boshoff, a small town that is 120 kilometers outside of Bloemfontein. My purpose was to dedicate my time and effort to a youth-focused pet project. I became passionate about community development when I was inspired by a module that I studied at Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. My approach may have been disorganized, but I was deeply engaged in a cause that held meaning not only for me, but for others. Most importantly, I was having fun in the process. Around 3 p.m., Noby gave me a call, eager to know when I would be back home. He had managed to get his hands on a DVD of the movie Ray, which we had not had the chance to watch during its second run because in Bloemfontein there were limited movie options. In addition to enjoying listening to music together, we loved watching movies at home. He had promised that he would seek it out. He was excited. He also shared his excitement about the books and the CDs he had ordered, which had just arrived. We were both looking forward to a delightful movie night. His hangover worked to my advantage, as I could ask our helper to prepare dinner, because Noby's go-to remedy for a hangover was Nando's chicken. Otherwise, cooking was not negotiable. I cooked for him. Despite our anticipation for a wonderful evening together, I gradually found my energy waning. When I returned home, I discovered my sister, brother, and another cousin Vyogazi there, which irked me a bit. Excuse me. I inquired about their unexpected visit, and they explained that their brother-in-law had invited them. At times, I wish he would not be so generous. Did he have no concept of quality alone time? I went to sit outside, feeling deflated, my mood going down. I decided to call Nomboniso and shared with her that I was not feeling quite right. I could not pinpoint any reason for my mood, but I knew something was off. We spent an hour or so chatting about various topics. Our phone conversations were often lengthy and covered everything from deep discussions to light, fluffy topics. After our chat, I placed an order for Noby's evening meal, and once I believed it was ready, I went to collect it. Noby made it home sometime between 6 and 7 p.m., and he was his usual cheerful self. He had his new CDs, books, and the Ray DVD we had been looking forward to. Of course, he also had a small bottle of his beloved Jack Daniel's whiskey. He always welcomed a loving kiss, from me, of course, with a warm smile and some casual chit-chat. And I presented him with that package and put extra care into reheating his meal, knowing that Nando's had provided me with a bit of a breather from cooking. Along with his dinner, I gave him his marijuana potion for his blood pressure. He savored what would turn out to be his very last evening meal. A hot quarter chicken meal with chips, a Portuguese roll, and a Coke, just the way he liked it. He was in high spirits, and he carried on with our conversation although the specifics of it escape me now, we always found something to talk about. I honestly cannot recall a time when Noby and I were not on speaking terms for more than a few hours. Our disagreements were fleeting, much like a thunderstorm that would come and go. I did not particularly like or enjoy those emotional storms. Noby would try in vain to get me riled up, but I just could not match his energy. Every time I would end up stunned and sulking afterwards, which he did not appreciate. He would make funny faces to lighten my mood, and if that did not work, he would straightforwardly ask me to let it go. It was impossible to stay angry with him for an extended period. He was an amiable person. So, if the issue was important to me, I would address it as soon as the storm passed. But usually, he would have just needed to scream because he felt I had been dismissive, which was sometimes the case, or not on his side, which was rarely the case. We settled in together on the couch while others found their spots in the room. Zandile and their cousin Zintle, who was just 4 at the time, were energetically playing, darting around, in and out of the room. As the movie began, we watched Ray's brother passed away, and his mother's inconsolable grief played out on the screen. At that moment, Noby turned to me and made a request, asking if I could promise not to react in the same way. He did not want me to cry or create scenes after he was gone. I wanted to watch the movie, so I agreed to his wish. Noby, however, continued to talk during the movie. He revisited his plans for his funeral in detail, from the specific type of coffin he wanted to the 3 speakers, the menu, and other minute details. He emphasized that he didn't want to be cremated anymore to honor his mother's wishes. To be honest, I had heard these plans countless times before, and I just wanted to focus on the movie. It was interesting. Who was out to get him anyway? Who would want him dead? I was irritable. Could he just keep quiet? This was my internal world. I kept it to myself. As Ray rose to fame, his promiscuous behavior began to play out on the screen, which struck a chord with Noby. He turned to me, expressing his remorse for his past mistakes. In response, I reminded him that I would not be by his side if I had not learned to forgive, just as he had taught me. He had indeed instilled in me the art of forgiveness. He went on to share his perspective, reflecting, I quote, "We are foolish as men. We act irrationally. A person finds someone who loves them when they have nothing. And when they believe they have reached a certain point, they often treat them poorly." Close quote. It seemed like he was talking to himself. I, however, did not feel that he had treated me poorly. If anything, we were generally happy. Our relationship had been a source of joy. Noby had tended to be flirtatious since his university days, and I had not anticipated him changing that aspect of himself. My psychologist had difficulty comprehending my viewpoint on this matter, but I had no intention of making her understand or justifying my choices to her. My journey into therapy was a personal one, aimed at self-improvement. I wanted to confront and resolve my insecurities, feelings of low self-worth, self-doubt, and other issues without projecting them onto our relationship. Noby knew I stood on this. He had been covering the cost of my therapy since we started living together. At about 8:20 p.m., my sister noticed a car entering the driveway, which sounded its horn. I calmly responded that they would come to the door. Shortly after, Noby got up, and I assumed he was heading to refill his drink. Then suddenly, a gunshot echoed through the house, followed by several more in rapid succession. Panic set in, and we instinctively sought cover. In the wake of the tragic events of March 2005, the strength of remembrance and honoring Noby's wishes became my guiding light. His funeral was a powerful testament to the impact he had on countless lives. The act of remembrance and honoring one we love endures as a beacon of light in the darkest of times. My journey continued, and though no longer with me in person, his presence remained etched in my heart. A reminder that love transcends even the deepest of losses. When I go to chapter 6, it says, "The widow in white speaks." The speech that generated all the controversy. How does one dishonor a loved one, especially when that loved one had done so much for them? When I met Noby, I was young. I was sure that destiny had determined our lives. I had a lot to deal with, to come to terms with. I was broken in so many ways. I felt small. I imagined myself invisible. I carried shame as a shield in front of me. It shielded me from rising. He loved me. He adored me. He treasured me. And he trusted me. We were broken in so many ways. We were whole at the same time. Whole in our brokenness. We loved one another. I had prayed for him in the yard where my forebears once walked. I asked for him amongst hundreds who had gathered to witness my coming out as a Sangoma ceremony. There was no way that we were not made for each other. Our stars were aligned. We understood each other even when we did not. We forgave each other repeatedly, for we knew that we were not perfect, nor did we seek perfection. What we sought was to be together, grow old together, and delight in each minute. It was with this depth of this understanding that he trusted that I would honor his request, that I speak for him when he could not speak for himself. I was there when he was persecuted. I may not have understood the depth of his agony, but I listened to his heavy sobs. I listened to his heavy sobs. He cried. Nobody could cry. Those who know him well know that he could cry. I held him. I watched him wither away as he became almost paranoid, deeply discouraged, and hopelessly clutching for a way out of a corner that he was not sure how he had found himself in. I was helpless. I could only hold him and listen to him in astonishment, bewilderment, and later on in fear. The whole notion that someone wanted to kill harmless Noby was far-fetched. Yet he felt his imminent death with each passing minute. Nonto, too, is a former colleague and friend, passed out when she heard the news of his death. She had been with him in the premier's office that afternoon when he told them that they were going to kill him that day. Then I jump. During the week of October 14, 2005, Noby's grave was desecrated by the state of South Africa, by the government that is served with pride, a government of its treasured liberation movement, the government that had turned on its loyal servant. It was peculiar. I was numb. They had deemed it fit for me to bury my husband twice. Once was not painful enough. They were dealing with me, and decisively indeed. It was yielding the desired effect. I was in excruciating emotional pain. However, they would never see it. They would never know. No one would. I would be the short woman standing with her chin up, just like I had promised Noby to. He was right. I was strong. But he was wrong. I was weak, but could never show it. Unbeknownst to me, the police would be their quintessential selves and involve the media. They intended for it to be a spectacle. I was hurting. I was devastated, and I lacked understanding. What African in their right mind would perform such a hideous act? While the coffin was lowered, I knelt with incense burning, invoking the wrath of the ancestors. Their own had been violated in the worst possible manner. They had to show that they felt the scorn. They had to act soon. I was not pleading, I was challenging them. Even a newspaper article titled Hands of the Scorpion on 16 October 2005 could not understand the state's abhorrent behavior, and I quote, "The police ineptitude in their handling of investigations into serious crimes in this country never ceases to amaze. This week, the police embarked on a bizarre search for a murder weapon when they exhumed the body of the Free State bureaucrat Noby Ngombane 6 months after he was buried. They did not find it." I close the quote. The formal inquest into Noby's tragic death concluded, marking a significant step in our relentless battle against false accusations. The weeks of emotional turmoil, relentless scrutiny, and an unwavering battle against circumstantial evidence culminated in a verdict that, while not perfect, offered a sense of vindication. The court's conclusion that an unknown hand was responsible for the fatal shot that killed Noby finally liberated me and my family from the shadow of suspicion. The nightmare of unfounded allegations was, at long last, over. Yet, the larger truth remains elusive, and justice remains a distant goal. Okay, I combined many chapters there, I don't know how many. Now, chapter 10, Growing Up Without Noby, the impact on Kanya and Zandile. May I drink my iced tea, please? Thank you. Kanya Guguletu and Zandile Sibulele, the gifts from my union with Noby, face challenges of growing up without their father. They shared a unique bond while facing several struggles and enduring a myriad of emotions that define their world. My children, Kanya and Zandile, were my saviors when I could neither save them nor me. Noby and I had different parenting styles. I believed in the basics while he preferred to indulge the children. He also loved taking them along when he visited his friends. He cherished them, and this delighted me because he had wanted them so much. Also in the book, I tell of how we fought and how he eventually won and got the children. But you buy the book and find that out. After seeing how much Kanya had enjoyed a PlayStation while he had taken him to his friend's place, he insisted that I get him one, which I resisted, fearing its impact on his development, but I failed. He got it. He would clash with Zandile though. Excuse me. Once he took her with, and when she was bored, she took matters into her hands by taking the car keys and the wallet where he had put them on the table, demanding that he get up to leave. Her determination left Noby embarrassed, but amused his friends. The void that Noby left in my children's lives took an unimaginable toll on them. I had depended on him to keep on doting on them. Friends, South Africans, and everybody who's here is joining us today, I cherish this love story of a boy and a girl who started as friends, then became lovers, and eventually became husband and wife. They lived each day as if it might be their last, savoring every moment without any regrets. For nearly a decade, they shared a joyful and intricate bond. They made a conscious effort to be together, making the most of every moment. They shared laughter, played together, and had their fair share of fun and silliness. I, the girl who is now a widow, still smile when I think about our jokes and the good times that we had. Thank you The rest of the book is on sale. And please order. Please buy the book. And please don't pirate the book. Anyway, whatever, you can pirate it if you want. I'd ask for people to ask some questions via a WhatsApp group that I had formed. And I received 3 questions that I'm going to answer. I'm not going to say who the questions were from. Yes, Nokuzol, love transcends the deepest of losses. Yes, thank you. So question 1 was, and I'm going to combine it with question 2. It says, what challenges did you face after the loss of your husband, and how did you overcome them? Which is the same as this one that says, how were you able to cope with the death of your husband? How was I able to cope? I didn't cope. I didn't cope. Thanks, Meko. I went into what is called a shutdown. If I had time, I was going to share with you that I am in type 7 on the Enneagram. This is the personality type that doesn't want to feel painful emotions, that doesn't want to feel fear. Thanks, Annabelle. Thanks, thank everybody. Thanks, my mom. This personality type that I am does not want to face painful emotions, runs away. So what we do is we reframe, or we go numb, we shut down. So for me, remember, Noby had given me instructions not to cry an hour before he was killed. He had given me instructions on how to go about with his funeral. Many instructions are there in the book. So my personality type is a personality type that shuts down, and what I did was to make sure that Noby was buried in the way he wanted to be buried. So I didn't cope. There were activities, and it was an action plan. There were children that had been taken to school. I didn't cope. I just closed myself and I went into another world. When you read the book, you'll find what I say about the widow who spoke. The speech just created controversy. It's in the book. I transcribed it. I didn't cope. I shut down. I was lost. Every day after Noby was buried, I went to his grave after I dropped the children to speak to him and say, hey, I mean, really, are you for real? If I had time, I was going to read to you a letter that I wrote to him in 2012. I still wrote to him as if he appeared. It was confusing. I could never believe it. Because Noby and I would watch old couples and say, yo, sizawufana abaya, sihleke amaxhegwazana namaxhego bangakwazi ukuhamba. I didn't cope. I cried for my children. Because because I did not want children. I never wanted children. I wanted Noby, not children. And he wanted children and me. Now he left the children. I didn't cope. I was a housewife. And Noby didn't have money. Didn't have that 20 million. He had nothing. He had debt. I didn't cope. I went to a deep depression. I didn't cope at all. Did you receive any support from your husband's family? And how is the relationship with them currently? Did they play a big role in your journey to live life without your husband in the physical world? Noby's father, Nkhatebe. Oh, I miss him. He died exactly 4 months after Noby died. He loved me. He loved me deeply. Let me tell a story. He would anticipate the month end. That is his son's month end. Well, didn't have a month end. Then I'd bring him money, and so he would bring him money to go and buy his favorite beverage. And he would, I don't know what now it is called, he would incur that, like in the shippings, and say, Kaya is going to come, which is my name, So we're very close afterwards. They supported me. He, in fact, supported me with that. Mama was wishy-washy. The brothers were wishy-washy. Oh, wishy-washy is a term that we used to use, My friends will understand this. They were wishy-washy. They pretended to support me, Later on, when this notion that I killed him surfaced, and that was after Tata died. In fact, I don't know when they started buying into it. My Tata, that is Noby's father, loved me. When the police were harassing them and harassing us, wanting them to, share details of our marriage or whatever. I don't know what they were asking. I was not there. Tata was in pain. And he was in pain, and he didn't understand. At some point, I heard that my mother-in-law believed that I killed Noby. And I understood that the whole family, except for Tata, believed that. So, and I'm quite confrontational at times. So I told them that I died. After that I died, I told them that I know where I stood with them. So after Noby died, they played a role, especially with Tata. I would go there. I continued doing what Noby was doing through friends who supported me, shared their money and their with me. Those I was not working. How's our relationship now? I don't have a relationship with the Ngombanes. The only Ngombane I have a relationship with is Kanya, my son, right now. And Papana's son, Sisanda, and his ex-wife. So, today, let us celebrate Noby. Please. No more tears. Well, I'm lying. If tears are here, let's cry. Let's celebrate him. Thank you very much for joining me. And if anybody's got any question, thank you, Noxola. I'm such a good storyteller. Dikhule ngokuhlala ngantsomi Khosi. Okhona umaginyathi nempondo.